Happy Wednesday, folks, and welcome to Food for Thought. Shining a light on entrepreneurs who deserve the spotlight for the trailblazing work that they're doing is what we're all about, and today's guest is no exception. Hailey Jefferies, co-founder at Prairie Fava in Manitoba, is introducing Canadians to one of the lesser-known pulse crops, fava beans. For those unfamiliar with what a pulse is, the pulse crop family includes dried peas, edible beans, lentils, chickpeas, and fava. Pulses are very high in protein, fiber, and low in fat. For clarity, the term pulse only refers to the dry seed. As such, fresh peas and fresh beans are not pulses, nor are soybeans or peanuts because of their higher fat content. Fava is cheekishly known as the bean with too many names, and I'm interested to learn what these other names are. Without further ado, let's jump in on all things pulses and learn about this new crop that is starting to sprout from coast to coast. Hailey, welcome to the show. Where does Food for Thought find you today?
Hey, Mike. Well, I'm sitting currently at my home office in Brandon, Manitoba.
So tell us the story of Prairie Fava. You're located in Brandon. When did it start and what do you produce and sell?
So our plant is actually located in Glenboro, Manitoba. It's about 45 minutes southeast of Brandon. This all started about 5-ish years ago when my husband and I, we actually moved back to Manitoba, which was home, from Ontario, for him to join his 5th generation family seed business and farm, Jefferies Seeds. So moving back to rural Manitoba meant I was leaving my corporate sales job behind. I actually thought about becoming a teacher at the time. And then my mom got sick with ovarian cancer and I became her caregiver. During that time, Kale had come home and he said, geez, I would sell a whole lot more fava bean seed to farmers if they had a steady market to sell their beans to. Kale also kind of thought those snap pea crisps in the grocery store were flying off the shelves and told me I should do something like that, but with fava beans. So Kale and I had always been pretty entrepreneurial spirited. And again, I was curious and started looking into what a fava bean even was, because to be honest, I actually didn't know. The more research I did, the more I got excited about fava's potential, especially to meet the current demand of plant-based protein. So that was that. I was passionate about health due to my mom's cancer. I also love sales. So I decided to put that passion for health and sales together, and I founded Prairie Fava. So we officially started processing the first lot of our beans in the fall of 2017. To date, we currently sell whole fava, everything from whole fava beans to fava splits to fava flour. We ship across North America as a food ingredient, but also do a bit of exporting to Japan, Vietnam. We've even gone to Belgium. Our vision is to make fava famous, to give people an ancient bean that can be processed and used as a versatile ingredient to make our food better for all of us. So when my mom was ill, something she always craved was carbs. And I thought, if only I could make that bagel a bit more nutritious. And so now it's pretty exciting that the fava flour can help address that concern and issues.
Very interesting. So for those that aren't aware of what a fava bean is, it's a pulse crop. Is that correct?
Yes, it is a pulse crop.
Okay. And what is the difference between a hull and a split? And then you also sell the whole bean itself.
Yes, we do. So the hull is actually when you look at a whole bean, the hull is the outside layer or the outside shell of the whole bean. So we actually, we take off that hull and it naturally actually splits itself, almost similar to like a pea split like you would see in the grocery store, but it becomes a little more yellow in color. And so that's the split fava bean. And then the hull is what we remove, and that's actually our byproduct. It's very fibrous, but when we're processing into flour, we want it to just be the split, as that's actually what causes the flour to be a bit more pure and also more neutral in flavor.
In the simplest sense, where may people have tried fava beans if they haven't knowingly gone and purchased them? Is fava common in any popular food dishes? And is it becoming a replacement for other traditionally used ingredients?
In North America, it's still not commonly known. It's really well known in other countries around the world. Actually, Canada does a lot of exporting to Egypt. In Egypt, it's primarily going into canning markets. Here in Canada, fava would probably be the most popular in Quebec. It's actually famous in their soup called grenage. Now, I'm sorry, I'm not French, so I apologize if I pronounce that wrong. There are some, though, new and innovative food products using fava. As you start to kind of look at the back of labels of your food when you're buying in the grocery store, you're going to start to see fava being referred to as fava flour, fava protein, broad bean, fava isolate. It's a bean with way too many names, but most commonly on the back of food products, you'll see it being referred to as fava with a V.
Okay. And does it have, is the taste, is it strong? Is it neutral?
So fava is actually, out of all of the pulses, it's the most neutral in flavor. So that's kind of its unique characteristic. It's pretty high in protein, it's high in fiber, but it's also most neutral in flavor. So the great benefit to that is that we all want food, number one, to taste great, but we also want it to be more nutritious. So when we can add fava to it at a higher inclusion rate to boost that protein and fiber content without adversely affecting the food, that's a huge win. And fava has the potential to do that because of its neutral flavor properties.
So I read that the amount of protein grown per acre is one of the largest of all the pulse crops, making it a very high food producer per acre for farmers. Can you shed some light on the nutritional profile of the fava beans themselves?
Yeah, so fava beans are very nutritious. They check all the boxes too when it comes to consumer trends. Favas are one of the highest in protein out of all the pulse crops and highest in fiber. They're also low in fat and lower in carbohydrate than other pulses. So when you look at a fava bean, it's also not genetically modified. It's naturally gluten-free. It contains no saturated fat. It's low in glycemic index. So fava beans are very nutritious. They're also rich in iron, which can reduce the risk of low blood iron and anemia. So there's also so many micronutrients in fava beans. So they're a really healthy and nutritious bean, and really exciting ways and versatile ways that we can use them in our current food products to help us all, boost our food products to be more nutritious, but still taste great.
Definitely. A couple of the things that caught my eye when researching is that it is low in glycemic index. So it's not as blood sugar enhancing as some other comparatives. It contains magnesium, and magnesium is a very hot topic these days and can be difficult to find naturally in foods. A lot of times people are supplementing that. So to find that in a natural source, and then it also being gluten-free. And the other piece too is it contains no sodium, I believe, as well. So, I mean, those are some it's almost a nutritional grand slam in some ways that you don't see in a lot of food products.
Yeah, no, exactly. And thank you for highlighting those. Favas are fantastic. They're great. And it's just now we, as consumers, finding ways to eat more of them is key.
Mm-hmm. So are fava beans, where are they most prevalently grown around the world? You said a lot of them are in Canada, are exported to the Middle East. Are they grown in the Middle East as well, or Canada is known as a leader in fava bean?
We're not. We're probably smaller compared to other regions. We grow a decent amount, still very small crop comparatively to other crops that we grow across Canada. Fava beans grow really well, and in Australia, in Europe, Egypt and China also grow fava beans. So when you look at the global economics of fava beans, Canada, we still have some work to do on our agronomics to compete against some of these other countries, but that will come with time. But we do have on average about 100,000 acres of fava beans grown across Canada, but sometimes it can be tough to compete against our Australian beans or European beans when you are trading beans as a commodity or exporting.
Definitely. And is that largely driven because of climate and Canada just having a longer winter season and shorter time, or what are those factors that allow those other countries to have a bit of a predisposing advantage at this point in time?
Yeah, I think a few things, probably experience in growing it. Climate would probably play a role in it. Where they're located for freight and ease of shipment would probably play a role in it. And that's why export is always super important. But that is also why, as Prairie Fava, we're very focused on adding value to the fava bean and using it more as an ingredient in the North American market. So we can also develop that market here and have uses for it so that, we're not always just relying on exporting.
Yeah, that makes sense. I've read that it's key for human grade fava to be low in tannin, lysine, and co-lysine. What exactly does that mean?
So actually all fava is safe and is human grade. Tannins are a bit darker in color. They're primarily used for canning. They can be a bit more bitter, but in different markets, they actually like that flavor profile. At Prairie Fava, we do not like processing tannin beans into flour, as it can add a bit of off notes or bit of bitterness in the flour, which we want it to stay as neutral in taste. So therefore we like to process non-tannin fava beans. There is a small percentage of the population, mostly Mediterranean descent, that are sensitive to two components, lysine and conlysine in a fava bean. This is not widespread, but Prairie Fava does have an exclusive right to a new high protein, low tannin, low lysine, low conlysine fava bean called DL Rico. It's under limited commercial production this year. Will be available to companies, and we will be using it in our future consumer products, which we are very excited about.
Fantastic. Can you share any more insight on what some of those consumer products might be, or at least what sort of categories we might see them in the grocery store?
Yeah, we're looking this fall at launching kind of on e-commerce with people doing more baking and cooking at home since COVID. We're looking in the dry mixes. So we've actually developed a 1-to-1 gluten-free high protein fava flour. So it's easy to use in all your favorite recipes, and you can just swap it out cup for cup. We're also in the midst of looking at pizza crusts and different dry mixes that are easy for consumers to use in their kitchen, but also allow them to do some of their own baking or cooking.
That's very cool. I'd love to try a fava bean pizza crust. I'll have to keep my eyes peeled for that. Yeah.
We'll send you some. You could taste test it.
Perfect. So how does fava bean compare to pea protein? A lot of people are familiar with pea protein right now, as it's included in a lot of these newer age plant protein products, the Beyond Meats of the world. How does it compare from a nutritional perspective? And is there an opportunity for potentially fava and pea protein to play off one another, or to different blended products, as they're often grown, I believe quite similarly and in geography?
Yeah. So fava, now I can only talk in fava as a whole ingredient, as we actually don't process the concentrate or the isolate of the protein, but fava is very complementary, to various proteins. Comparatively to a pea protein, I have heard that it has a unique amino acid profile, which makes it a very desirable plant-based option. Obviously, I'm very biased towards fava, but just like meat, meat eaters don't just eat one kind of meat. So I think for the plant-based foods, it's including more of them and a combination of them. So I think that pea and fava could be a great blend, as pea is more popular, but fava has some unique characteristics. So I think it's just up and coming. If you look at the pea industry, it took about 15 years ago, it wasn't even close to where it is now. So these things do take time. It takes time to develop agronomics, develop functionality of these ingredients, develop end markets. So peas had a lot of R&D put behind it over the last 15 years, and it's gotten to a more popular place. It still has a lot of room to grow. And so Fava is just at the beginning stages of this. And so the more that we can put R&D behind the agronomics and the growing and the functionality of the ingredients, and then how to market this, ancient bean, but new ingredient, so to say, I think it will definitely be able to compete with pea, but also be able to complement pea in the same time.
That's very exciting. So speaking of which, there was a recent announcement with Prairie Fava and Roquette, which is a global leader in plant-based ingredients and one of the pioneers of plant-based proteins, on a $19.2 million R&D project in collaboration with Protein Industries Canada. This was very exciting. Can you tell us a little bit more about this project?
Yeah, this opportunity is incredible. It was great to be able to collaborate with a global leader like Roquette. What does it mean for the Canadian consumer? It means that Prairie Fava can continue to work on ways to optimize a bean that has so many health and nutritional benefits that we just talked about, that can make food for consumers, or should I say food for our family, our friends, our aunts, uncles, grandparents, better for us while still tasting great. It also means that the food that we're eating, we know is not harming the environment. It's actually helping the land and the soil. Fava is extremely high in nitrogen fixing crop. So it actually fixes the nitrogen in the soil. So we know that when doing this, it's making the soil better. So we are now eating food that is, great for our bodies, but we also know it's so good for the land and the soil. So it's a very sustainable ingredient. So having this kind of opportunity is helping us get this ingredient out to consumers and also benefiting our environment. So as consumers, we want to eat foods that are not only healthy and sustainable, but with this type of support for companies from Protein Industry Canada, allows us at Prairie Fava to stay dedicated to also giving consumers food that is traceable, and we all know where it's coming from.
That's very exciting. And I think you brought up a really interesting point about the nitrogen, because one thing I wanted to ask you was, what I've read about Fava is that you've been encouraging farmers to plant it as part of a healthy crop rotation. And one thing that COVID has really brought to light is an emphasis on sustainable regenerative agriculture, as opposed to sort of these monoculture type ag that, has been quite prevalent in North America, which, a lot of, chemical fertilizers being used. But if I understand correctly, I think fava bean can fix upwards of 90% of its own nitrogen requirements. So that means less industrial nitrogen fertilizer needs to be applied by farmers, which, as you go down the line, the lower amount of fertilizer, the lower cost for the farmer, giving them a higher net return while also producing less greenhouse gas emissions. Can you just touch on that, on how those conversations have been going when you're talking with farmers about planting fava, and is that catching on?
Yeah, I have to, I didn't know a ton about this when I first started, and we have become really passionate about it. I have to say my husband's farm has always been a big promoter and a big advocate of, proper crop rotation. When you're rotating crops properly, you're using less chemicals. It's way better for the soil, and fava really fits nicely into that. The biggest problem, that's kind of why we started Prairie Fava, is Kale's farmers, as their seed plant or a seed business, were coming to him looking for nitrogen fixing crops, and knowing that fava, when they would plant fava and then they would plant wheat the next year, they were actually getting really great yields on their wheat the next year. But the issue was they needed a market to sell the fava beans to after they plant it. But going back to, they find it's an amazing nitrogen fixing crop. Like I said, fixing up towards 90%. It's higher than peas. It's, I think, the highest pulse crop for fixing nitrogen. And it's just a really, really critical component for conventional and organic farming because they increase the activity of the microbial biomass in the soil. So this improves the soil structure, the water retention capacity, while also reducing wind and water erosion. So farmers are really motivated and want to rotate their crops properly, but it's just also balancing that crop rotation with market demand. So that's kind of where Prairie Fava hopes to bridge that gap.
Very interesting. And I think it's fantastic that, Prairie Fava is a pioneer in opening Canadians' eyes to the fava bean. And I guess, what do you think it will take to get fava beans to becoming more of a household pantry type product? I mean, a lot of families are quite familiar with chickpeas, with lentils. We just had Mike Fata on the podcast the other day, and obviously he's sort of the pioneer of the hemp-based food movement. And now, hemp hearts on yogurt is becoming just as, prevalent almost as granola, if not more now. And so when you look at it from Prairie Fava's point of view, is it just a matter of you getting more consumer products into the grocery store? Is it more, exciting R&D collaborations? What do you think it will be a mix of?
Yeah, I have to say, Mike Fata, I definitely look up, and I hope and aspire to be like Mike Fata and Manitoba Harvest, as he's done some pretty incredible things in the hemp industry and pioneering it. And I hope that one day we can look back and see Fava's journey similar to hemp's. I have all the faith in the world. It's coming. It just takes some time. It's not as popular as chickpeas and lentils. But it's really exciting, like we talked about with Protein Industries Canada, and having Roquette, a global leader in plant-based protein, also share a passion and announce that for Fava, being part of the future. It's really great to see big companies supporting the Fava movement. I think, like we said before, it just takes time. I think it's a combination of developing consumer products while still looking at the ingredients and how they function, so that we can develop consumer products that are desirable and easy to use for consumers on a daily basis, that give them taste and convenience and health and nutrition and, great sustainable ingredients. So when you look at all those things, it sounds really easy, but it does take time to build out that whole supply chain and build out that whole market distribution. So I think it's a combination.
Rewinding the clock a few years, Prairie Fava was one of 6 companies selected to present at Arlene Dickinson's prestigious demo day to a crowd of, I think it was over 100 investors and industry partners. Can you share a little bit about this experience for any of the entrepreneurs listening in?
Yeah, it was a nerve-wracking experience to have to pitch your business in front of one of the hit TV show Dragons, right? From Dragon's Den, Arlene Dickinson. We were super infancy when I pitched Prairie Fava initially. We're still a very young company, but her accelerator program and team are great to work with and have been very supportive. The funding that we received has helped us, gain traction. It's helped us put money towards research and development and product development and getting closer to launching some innovative Fava products and ingredients, which again will hope, continue to drive that market demand.
Very cool. I know a lot of entrepreneurs that would love the opportunity to pitch in front of her. So that's very, very interesting that you had the opportunity to do so. I have 3 final questions.
Yeah.
So first one is, are there any grocery stores or restaurants or online channels that consumers can find any sort of fava bean type product now? And looking forward, where's the best place for them to follow along your story so that when you do bring these products to market, consumers know where they can find them?
Yeah, we don't sell directly to consumers as of right now. But like we said, we are working on a few products that we'll be launching online, hopefully later this fall. So we do have Instagram and Twitter. We will be launching our Facebook page. So please stay tuned and follow along. And I also have LinkedIn, so add me. I'm, always interested in sharing what we have going on and sharing our future innovation with everybody. And hopefully everybody will be as excited as we are about these products.
Fantastic. What are some of your favorite innovative food products or snack brands on the market right now?
Ooh, I'm obviously biased to anything that has fava in it. So I really like a fava snack called Bada Bean Bada Boom. The company's called Enlightened. They use a larger fava bean, also referred to as a broad bean. I think they're super tasty, and it's really great to see how successful they have been in the market, especially using just a fava bean as a snack product. I also, it's not fava, but I also love oat milk. Would love to see eventually a non-dairy combo of oat and fava, and then it would be a complete source of protein, or you could get a protein claim. So I think that company Oatly is pretty cool, and would love to aspire to be like them.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I've tried oat milk a lot more recently and quite enjoyed it. And I've been trying some of the other sort of different plant-based milks, and I've been pleasantly surprised at how good all of them taste, even on their own, whether you're mixing it with protein powder or you're putting it in a smoothie. I've been pleasantly surprised. So
yeah, it's amazing what they can do. And yeah, it's a really exciting time to watch all of this innovation shine and consumers being so receptive to it.
Definitely. So my final question, and it's one that I ask every Food for Thought guest. So you're someone that lives, eats, and breathes the business of food all day, every day. What is your favorite way to reconnect with food on a personal level?
So I think my favorite way to connect with food is when I'm sharing it with my family. As great as food can taste and be healthy for our bodies and our planet, there's really nothing better than sharing healthy and great food with the people that you love. So that's a bit sappy, but that's how I connect with it the best.
Perfect. Well, thank you for taking the time today, Hailey. I really appreciate it.
No, thank you so much.